four of us have a very important job to do. In fact, it might be the most important job in the history of the world.
M. Night Shyamalan's Knock at the Cabin feels out of alignment with the filmmaker's catalog of twist-heavy, suspense-laden thrillers. Maybe that's because this time Shyamalan has collaborated with two co-writers, Steve Desmond and Michael Sherman, while adapting Paul Tremblay's devastating novel, The Cabin at the End of the World. It's an apocalypse film that doesn't feel all that apocalyptic, an overall one-note and sometimes muted doomsday scenario. Shyamalan's chamber-locked standoff between a cult-like group and a fearful family is occasionally effective, but rarely affecting, which doesn't match the bleak tragedy at the heart of Tremblay's story.
We were called and are united by a common vision, which has now become a command that we cannot ignore.
Everyone is playing their individual parts well enough as a whole. There's same-sex parents, Eric and Andrew, played by Jonathan Groff and Ben Aldridge. Their sweetheart of an adopted daughter, Wen, played by Kristen Cui, and devout captors led by Dave Bautista's Leonard. Some vacation cheerfulness is interrupted by Leonard's crew, who informs them they have a choice: choose one family member to die, and in doing so, save the world. Bautista ends up being the standout as this hulking conversationalist busting out of his pedestrian button-down shirt, capable of destructive violence and yet softly rationalizing through dialogue with the charismatic command of a cult leader. The stalemate tension hinges on Eric and Andrew's disbelief in divine visions, along with Shyamalan's ability to maintain suspense over Leonard's insistence that our world will burn if no sacrifice is chosen. But only Bautista's performance is innocent, despite both mentioned elements being guilty of lackluster results.
My heart is broken
Why is it broken?
because of what I have to do today.
The even temperament of Knock at the Cabin is shocking, given how Shyamalan unleashes brutal heartbreak, remorseless bigotry, plague smiting, and other radically intense experiences. Groff and Aldridge barter for their lives and relationship bliss, yet their romantic chemistry burns no higher than a matchstick's flame. Leonard's sidekick invaders never establish enough backstory to give weight to their sob stories when trying to sway the restrained couple towards a decision. Shyamalan's proven himself a fearlessly risk-taking storyteller throughout his career, yet this time he churns through fated motions that should present as more momentous. There's never any instance where the horrors of facing stand-ins for the four horsemen of the apocalypse draw even an ounce of fear, and there's a tendency to rush through important character moments. There's an intriguing concept at stake: sacrifice personal happiness in order to save a world full of monsters, yet Knock at the Cabin doesn't convincingly or compellingly sell its chosen finale. There are other competencies outside Bautista's breaking of typecast chains that shouldn't go unnoticed. Child performances aren't always reliable, but Cui is a darling addition to scenes because she brings out Bautista's warm compassion or emboldens Groff and Aldridge as partners. Cinematographers Jaron Blaschke and Laurel A. Meyer perceptively use their cameras to emphasize the cabin's isolation, sustaining dramatic pauses as the frame looms steady, heightening uneasiness while we eagerly wait for some conflict to erupt. Shyamalan is no stranger to psychological mind games and dangerous dilemmas, which allows scenes to move smoothly on a functional level from the very minute Bautista's harbinger appears in the woods, but little is built upon that. The cabin's got solid bones, yet is disappointingly barren on the inside.
What do we say? You shouldn't make things up when we're talking about...
Can you open the door, please?
Knock at the Cabin fails to knock the classic cabin in the woods horror methods out of the park. Director and co-writer M. Night Shyamalan abides by unfittingly formulaic standards and produces a tonal flatliner despite an arsenal of emotionally targeted beatdowns and prophecy-spouting lambs led to slaughter in the name of blind faith. There's nothing uniquely surprising or exceptionally rousing, which is a shame given the unfathomably dreadful predicament and an interesting turn of a performance from Dave Bautista. It's a film without sensation that feels like it's pulling its punches across the board. Development is stunted, ideas lack passion, and the camera avoids visible violence, before the ending strolls off into the sunset with barely any goodbye. Thematic messages tethered to Old Testament interpretations are lost when the story wraps due to increasingly stale predictability, as Knock at the Cabin exposes a Shyamalan script with surprisingly little to say. For more, check out our reviews of Megan and Violent Night. And for everything else, stick with IGN.